Hey brother! Jay, last week we got our very first look at Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and man oh man, Luke is going to be evil. I mean, just look at this poster, he's in red, that means evil. And that's it, end of video, don't even bother playing the intro. Okay, so for real, we do have a really cool prediction for what this movie is going to be about, and we have a lot to go on, so please stick around for it. But first, let's do a quick play-by-play of the trailer because there was so many blink and you miss it moments. Starting with that opening, I loved this misdirection. Like, how Star Wars is it to just start on like a starry sky look, and then slowly the focus kind of comes into play and you see, boom, Rey is back. That's basically all that matters. My Daisy Ridley crush is very much alive and well. But why is she breathing so hard? She's dressed the same way as we last saw her in The Force Awakens. Is it possible that the ambiguous encounter with Luke goes poorly? Maybe, but it kind of seems like she's really coming out of a Force vision, and if you look behind her, there is a cave, which totally reminds me of the Force cave Luke goes into on Dagobah. That probably holds up, especially when the very next thing we hear is Luke training or coaching Rey.
Breathe.
Hilarious advice for a film franchise that has some of the most famous and evil breathing of all time. But after that, we see rubble kind of lifting up around Rey's hands. Now, I don't think that this dialogue actually goes with this scene. I think probably what we're seeing is Rey starting to manipulate the Force on purpose for the first time. Now, of course, she has manipulated the Force right there. Chills, guys. Chills every time. But that was in a life or death situation. I think this is her gaining a more active control of the Force. So again, kind of similar to Luke, where he was able to pull the lightsaber for the first time to defend himself from the Wampa, but then Yoda still has him kind of training by just lifting and stacking rocks. Then we hear Luke say,
"What do you say?"
And then Rey responds,
"Light."
What does that mean though? Like the light side of the Force, possibly light on Jakku? Is Luke helping her unlock memories from when she was a child? Kind of one of those, you have to know where you come from to know where you're going type of things? At Star Wars Celebration, Daisy Ridley does reveal that we're going to learn a lot more about Rey's backstory in this movie. Then we see, I think, Leia from behind, which can we just pause on that for a second? This trailer pulls at your emotions in 11,000 different ways. And yes, 11,000, exactly 11,000. But that was an emotional moment, and even more emotional if you throw on headphones and listen super carefully, and you can actually hear Leia saying,
"Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope."
Which these voiceovers they keep doing in as soon as the very next scene, where we see something very similar to the Force Awakens trailer with a mangled helmet, except instead of Darth Vader's, this time it's Kylo Ren's. And even though the helmet looks like it was like physically smashed, it is like still freshly smoking, which is oddly reminiscent of Vader's helmet burning. Also, if you're listening carefully, you can faintly hear Vader's breathing in the background and Obi-Wan saying,
"Was seduced by the dark side of the Force."
Then we hear Rey say,
"Darkness."
Which is no doubt the next thing that Rey is seeing after light before. And then we get these books, and geez, I don't know why they got me so bad, but they totally did. I can't help but believe these are like the last remaining texts of the original Jedi religion. It's so weirdly powerful. It's 10 books quietly sitting on a shelf, but something tells me that like what is inside of those books is just immensely powerful. And we have that little beam of light, which instantly brought me back to that final scene of The Force Awakens when Han Solo and Kylo Ren are on the bridge together and there's the giant ray of light coming from, well, Rey. But I think they're using this beam of light very intentionally. I even think the fact that the beam of light doesn't completely illuminate the books is very much on purpose. It's almost like the light is kind of telling us something, like it's almost on the Jedi teachings, but not quite. Next we see inside of one of those books with a faded but clear symbol of the Jedi and more from Rey's vision.
A balance.
Also, if we go back to that poster, that same Jedi symbol, boom, right here. Then holy cow, we see a lightsaber! Fact, lightsabers are cool. And then we are reminded we don't get to see this till Christmas. Then we see speeders kicking up not blood, but they're definitely headed straight towards AT-ATs. Someone we have seen before, but not in this trailer, is Finn, who comes next. I guess this could be some kind of medical device based on the condition we last saw him in The Force Awakens. Also, medical capsules up to this point, and kind of notably in the second installment of the first trilogy, were Bacta tanks, so this might be something new and kind of different. My guess is if Finn is starting the movie somehow incapacitated, I bet he shows up at just the right time to save the day. Then a whole bunch of stuff happens. BB-8 and Poe running towards yet another possibly destroyed X-Wing. The Millennium Falcon! Rey with a lightsaber again. Gosh, she's great. Kylo Ren with a lightsaber! More from that scene of Rey's flashback with R2. Phasma in the house! Knew she wasn't gonna be dead. Trash compactor! Psh. Space battle necessary for a war in the stars, even though we didn't really see one in The Force Awakens. And then...
It's time for the Jedi to end.
Okay, so this sentence could easily be out of context and definitely could be incomplete. It could actually be Luke saying,
It's time for the Jedi to end.
This war.
It's time for the Jedi to end.
Ewok healthcare.
It's time for the Jedi to end.
Stormtrooper armor. It doesn't do anything anyway. But who knows, it kind of goes back to like everyone's biggest question about this movie, The Last Jedi. What does it mean? Does it mean Luke or Rey could be the last Jedi? Does it mean that Luke and Rey are the last of the Jedi? Does it mean the end of the Jedi religion altogether? Obviously, this is going to be super central to the entire plot of the movie, and probably where the most speculation is to be had. So, is it possible that Luke could actually be a bad guy? After all, the fall of the Jedi has kind of been the goal of every other Star Wars bad guy. So far my prediction is kind of maybe yes and maybe no. I know that's not super helpful, but stay with me. He may want to accomplish the same thing as every other villain in Star Wars, but maybe not for the same reason. I don't think that Luke wants to bring down the Jedi in order to take over and rule the galaxy. I think Luke knows that a war only exists if there is opposition of forces, and the Resistance only stands a chance if they have the help from the Jedi. And maybe the whole galaxy doesn't necessarily exist the way the Resistance wants it to, but if they do fall, then the galaxy would be at peace, kind of. This brings us to that critical scene at the end of The Force Awakens, and we have suggested before that maybe Kylo Ren isn't entirely a bad guy, and maybe Han Solo actually commits suicide so he doesn't have to force all of the light out of him. If you are unfamiliar with that theory, click the card and we have an entire video about it. So maybe Luke figured out if you can get someone you want to be in a position of power to a position of power from the inside, it kind of accomplishes the same thing, right? So if Kylo Ren can join the First Order, climb in ranks, let the Jedi die out, the First Order wins the war, and all of a sudden, he's in exactly the position you want him to be in. It's kind of the exact same move the Emperor pulled to begin with. He was a bad guy disguised as a good guy that waited until he had enough power to do things the way he wanted to. The Emperor had his agent, Anakin, and I think Luke has his agent in Kylo Ren, except I don't think Luke is manipulating Kylo Ren. I think they're in it together. Right down to the burning of the Jedi Temple. I think Luke actually set this fire to kind of give credence to Kylo Ren's turn to the dark side. This makes sense for a lot of reasons. If Kylo Ren knows what he is trying to accomplish and the Jedi are all but extinct except for Luke, who's just living as a hermit, the plan is going accordingly. The First Order is going to win. So if you're Kylo Ren, what do you do when you feel the Force awaken in the form of Rey? His plan isn't necessarily evil. He can want Rey gone for the right reason. What he wants is good for the galaxy, but we, the audience, love Rey as a character, so she is a disruption to what Kylo Ren and Luke are trying to accomplish. And if this is the plan, and Luke is the one who burned down the Jedi Temple, it even kind of explains why R2-D2 is just hanging out in power save mode. R2 is there for these scenes. He would have seen it happen, and he's one of Luke's oldest friends. He won't turn on Luke and tell people what he's done, and he doesn't even have the completed map, so he can't show them where he is, so what need does he have to be on? Unless that last piece of the map is delivered, and But Ben, we see Luke training Rey. Why would he do that? Well, that's a very good question, all of you. Because as far as Rey knows, Kylo Ren killed one of Luke's other best friends, Han Solo. And as Luke almost fell victim to the dark side, and knowing that his father was seduced by the dark side, upon hearing this news, he may believe that Kylo Ren has fallen victim to the exact same thing. And with that news, he starts training Rey to take over Kylo Ren's role. This is why Han's death is so important, because if it was murder, it means that Kylo Ren has turned to the dark side, and if it was suicide, he is still very much intact and still playing his role. But in order to convince everyone it was murder, it also means that that's what Rey believes. So that small bit of misinformation, I think, is going to drive the entirety of the rest of this story. So right now, I assume one of two things is probably happening in your mind. Number one being, yeah, no. But number two, Luke would never burn down the Jedi Temple. Now that is probably true, but at Star Wars Celebration, we did get the tiniest little bit of information from Daisy Ridley about Rey meeting Luke.
It's difficult when you meet your heroes because it might not be what you expect.
I like this theory because it lets Luke be the bad guy, but not the kind of bad guy we are used to in Star Wars. Not the I want to rule the galaxy kind of bad guy. The I want peace for the galaxy kind of bad guy. That's the worst kind of bad guy. No, but he's a bad guy because he is opposing one of our main characters. And that is how this movie can be amazing, by getting us, the audience, to forget what is actually best for the galaxy and making us focus on what is best for our main characters, especially characters we love as much as Rey. And I only mean that like 99% romantically. But guys, that is our theory so far with everything that we have, which is exactly 2 minutes and 1 movie poster and 1 movie title. What do you guys think? Is Luke going to be evil? Be sure to let us know in the towel section down below. Guys, I wish I could be as psyched as I am every time a new Star Wars trailer comes out, but you can almost get as close if you wear this fancy new tank top that we have available at dftpa.com. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see some more Star Wars action from us, you can click right here again to get the full lowdown on whether or not Han committed suicide, or right here to figure out whether or not Phasma is evil. But Jay, that is everything that I've got for you today, man. I will see you on Tuesday.